Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Kubeskills community edition here coming at you live on April 7th. If you're in the chat already, I do see a few people in there, I think. Say hello. Tell us where you're tuning in from today. Would love to hear from you. Yeah, we been having these community chats or community corners, I like to call them, and it's all around Kubeskills. So Kubeskills is a community for everyone to join and collaborate with others to learn containers and Kubernetes. Today we're joined by Lian Li, and she's a developer advocate at Loft Labs. And
Hey,
and yeah, she's Loft Labs. Everyone has probably heard of Loft Labs, which builds developer tooling for Kubernetes. She's also a community manager, organizer of Serverless Days Amsterdam and DevOps Days Amsterdam. And I saved the best for last, the CKO, which stands for Chief Karaoke Officer over at kuberoki.love. So let me put a shout out to that because I love karaoke. I mean, who doesn't, right?
who
So
doesn't? Yeah,
kuberoki.love.
that's it. Thank you so
And
much.
yeah, so Kuberoki is the first and only Kubernetes karaoke community. Our next
hmm
event, which I'm very excited about, which I'll be able to attend, is in Amsterdam on April 19th. And so,
Yep.
yeah, with that, Leon, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you being here and taking the time.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I'm really excited about today.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And so the topic of today is uh, building an
Creating
A
an A
team.
for the ages. Ages. Yeah,
A team for the ages. Sorry, I was going to
exactly.
make a joke about karaoke's again, but I'll leave that to the end. I did make a joke on Twitter about just talking about karaoke the whole time, but anyway,
Yep.
yeah,
Challenge accepted.
we could talk about that all day, but yeah, teams, creating teams, and creating an A team for the ages. And it was brought to my attention that that joke or that reference kind of went over people's head in terms of the A team, and I made a joke about, I pity the
I pity the
fool who
fool.
misses this.
Yeah.
And so
So do people not know what the A team is?
I don't think I feel like I have to tell them. So the A Team is a old
Oh,
TV show, and the main character, or one of the main characters, is this guy named Mr. T, and I didn't know this, but he
yeah.
actually legally changed his name. So you have to call him Mr. T. He and
You
he
mean the
wore all these
actor?
chains. Yeah, he was the actor,
Oh,
and
wow.
so his phrase, his tagline was "I pity the fool," and he was, this
Who
buff.
does something? Yeah. He
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
makes
So
a joke about it.
I feel like I feel like I had to clear the air there. I just wanted to, for all the youngsters out there, I just wanted to make sure everyone's clear on the A Team and the reference to that old, 80s. I guess it's 80s TV show, maybe 70s. I don't know.
I don't know. It was before my time, but I watched it in the 90s, I guess, when it came to Germany, because I'm from Germany originally, and the TV shows came like 10 years later, maybe. So, but the one thing about the A team, and I guess a lot of TV teams, is that everyone has their own domain. Everyone has their own specialty, and this like has their own personality also. And then sometimes they clash, and sometimes they create these synergies. So I think it's actually a very good reference to have in this conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Which is a good segue into kind of your background because, as you said, uh, come from Germany. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you, because I know you did an apprenticeship in Germany as a
hmm
software developer, right?
Yeah, yeah. So in
Yeah,
Germany, sorry, go ahead.
yeah. I just you don't hear a lot in the US about apprenticeships, and I think it's a shame. But can you tell us a little bit about that experience and how I guess it fueled your interest in teams and you know, working in that way?
Right. I guess okay. So the apprenticeships in Germany are um, kind of, I think it's like trade school. You go to trade school for 6 weeks at a time, and then you go and work at a place, and you basically work there full time, except for those 6 weeks that you're at school. And you get paid like a really low salary because you're a student, you're not a fully trained software developer. You do that for 3 years, and then you take like 2 exams and give like a presentation about it. You have to like do a project. It's kind of like doing a bachelor, but like really basic. So you do a project and you have to defend it. Like you write something about it, you have to defend that, explain it, and then you get like a certification, I guess, from the trade authority. I'm not quite sure how that translates into the US or wherever you are, but yeah, it's like a professional training, and you don't have like there are 3 levels of schooling in Germany, and depending on which level you finished, you are allowed to either go to university or do these trade schools or just like do some but yeah, there's like different requirements that you need to get into specific careers. And the
Hmm.
trade school is like below the university, I would say.
Interesting. So I think I think you may have mentioned before somewhere. I can't remember where I heard this, but it's kind of a like it's school is secondary, right? So you go
Mm.
to do one of these apprenticeships, and you know you learn most of what you learn is on the job, right? With experience, you know, as opposed to I think you said you went in an actual classroom setting, maybe
Mm-hmm.
once every other week
Yeah.
or something. Is that right?
It's at 6 weeks at a time. So you go for 6 weeks. You have like software development as a class, and infrastructure was one of them, or networking infrastructure kind of, and sports was one of them too. So it was like just regular school pretty much. But the people who went there, they ranged from like 17 to 27. So that was an interesting experience because people just like they could go at any time after they finished school. So there was an interesting group of people. And you asked me also about how that influenced like my interest for teams and teamwork. I think a lot of us have experienced teamwork in school already when you work on a project together. And I was always the person who just did everything, and then everyone else was just coasting. I've since then learned a lot about like how I was responsible for that as well, for that situation. But yeah, I'm maybe getting ahead of myself. But yeah, so I think my interest in teamwork was like even earlier than before I went to trade school.
Interesting. So I really like this apprenticeship model. I think I wish that we would adopt it more in the
Mm,
U.S. Um, I think it has a lot of implications for how you work in the real world, and when you get an actual job or later on down your life, and when you're trying to serve in that same capacity to someone else. And I think that's really important. I think it's something that we miss. Um, Definitely in the US in terms of being that apprentice for someone, right? So
mm,
now that you're later in your career and you kind of recognize the strengths of an apprenticeship model, or just being a part of it, and having that it's almost like correct me if I'm wrong, it's almost like you know nothing else. It's this is how you work in teams, this is how you work with others. An apprenticeship may not be with a team specifically, but um there's some of these things that you pick up, or maybe you can tell us? Are there some things that you can pick up during an apprenticeship that that kind of carry you through and you still use today?
Interesting question. I'm really interested in how you came up with that question, because I feel like I don't know if I can make like a specific connection between going to like doing an apprenticeship and teams in let's say opposition to going to university. I think you have like probably very similar experiences, because that doing the software engineering or software development apprenticeship does require you to work with other people, as you would, yeah, when you later in life in your profession work on projects or products. It always is in a team, and you do. Yeah, I get. Okay, now it makes sense that you asked that question. Yeah, I guess you do learn to distribute or divide specific tasks in like groups with boundaries. You learn about putting things into units. You learn about domains, I guess, in the software engineering sense. So yeah, I think that's when you first get in contact with them. Whether or not you succeed in making the right decisions there, that's certainly another question. I do think that um, skills like empathy or communication that are very important for teamwork are just not taught enough. They're just not specifically taught. If you're lucky, you get a teacher who's really into that, but there's no class on team building or teamwork, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. Do you have any stories or anything come to mind when you think about some of the you've been a part of a lot of teams, obviously. Do you have any stories about things that have gone like a highs and lows sort of thing? Like, I was a part of this team and this went great. I was a part of this team and
Yeah,
this didn't go great. Does
for
anything come to
sure.
mind?
Yeah, for sure. I think that the team that I measure all other teams by now is the first team that I worked with when I finished my apprenticeship. So basically, I started my apprenticeship at one company, then switched to a different one, and finished it there, and then worked there for almost 4 years in total. And the team that I started with there, that was the gold standard to me to this day. They were they adopted agile practices, and they were very, very good at dividing the labor between the four of them. There was no real team lead. Everyone kind of like carried responsibility equally, more or less, according to their needs and their skills. It even got to the point that they ran an experiment where they would get like a budget for their salaries. So everyone would share their salaries, and they would, as a team, make decisions about raises. So that was amazing. That also seemed to work. I was unfortunately not part of that team anymore by the time that they adopted this experiment, but it seemed to work. But it just worked with these particular people. When new people joined that team, it didn't work in the same way. They had to adjust. I think, yeah, it was just the three people who were just like super high performing. And then there were other people coming in, and it was fine, but they didn't stick around. That's what I'm saying.
How much of it is the chemistry between the people and the just the team structure or the I don't know, the team itself? Do you think?
I think it totally depends on the people. So in this particular team, I don't think they were friends at all. They were very friendly with each other at work, at the office. I don't think they ever met outside of work. I don't think they had drinks after work. They all three of them were just not the kind of people who would have a drink after work, which is totally fine. Yet they worked together very well. I think they just all had the same values. They all valued the same things over other things. So it was probably fairly easy to come to a consensus, and there was just a deep level of trust. So if I know you share the same values, it's easier for me to really, really trust you. I think it was really that, and that's probably also why it was difficult for new people to really integrate or assimilate into this team, because you have to find the exact right person to fit into this group, and that's really hard.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies, a lot of people talk about, finding a good culture fit or
Mm-hmm.
building a good culture when it's I feel like it's a little bit more meta than that. It's a little bit more at the individual level. And I think in terms of team building and working in teams, some companies may say, you need a lot of benefits or perks. You have to
Mm-hmm.
have the ping pong table and the free
Yeah.
snacks and all of that. When what I've found, and please tell me your experience with this as well, is that people don't need all of that. In fact, they just need someone to, you know, acknowledge their work and make them feel like their work matters, make them feel a part of something. Do you feel the same way?
I guess to some extent, yes. To some extent, I think some people maybe don't need um, that necessary feeling of belonging. Like one of those three, he was telling me, like, because this company was very strong on culture actually, and I loved it. I'm friends with a lot of those people. When I go back to Hamburg, I think last year, there was a huge alumni meeting pretty much with like 30 people, and we just had a great time together and still remained friends. But like these three people were probably the highest performing team in this entire company, and yet I don't think they ever hung out after work. I don't think so. I'm not sure, but they just certainly never invited me.
Mhm.
um, but yeah, so yeah, that's that's probably what I'm saying.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of both. Yeah, just how about for yourself? Like personally, do you feel what gives you most reward when you're working in a team?
Um, I really like when I can help someone, when I feel that the the what I'm doing contributes to someone else's success. When especially so I used to be a manager, and one of those things that's just super rewarding is if you can help someone just do something that they didn't think they were capable of.
Mm,
Really make someone um, push their own boundaries and see that they can achieve the things that they want to achieve. I don't think there's anything more rewarding than that, to achieve that for yourself, and then helping someone else to do that. That's even better. Um, so I think, yeah, to some extent, what you said about making people feel like their work matters, definitely, that is, I think I agree, that is probably the most important. Um, Making them feel like they belong to something bigger. If they want to, yeah, that would be great. I think most people want to, but some people, they're just totally happy to live their life outside of work, and they just go there because they need to make money. I think that's totally fine as well. I think that's maybe also part of what makes a great team, to have the diversity of people, and that is diversity in anything. It could also be that some people don't want to hang out after work, but how do you make sure that you can still cultivate that trust um, without having the beer after work? It's possible. You
mm,
just have to do it in a different way. You have to be maybe more intentional about it. I mean, I love the perks. I love the ping pong table. In Germany, it's the foosball table, and
mhm,
the free beer on every Friday. Um, that like I used to work at a big gaming company, and they had the first year that I joined for Christmas, everyone got a first generation iPad, and we were like already 300 people or something. It must have cost them a fortune.
mm.
The year before, everyone got like a PlayStation, I think, like every single employee.
Wow.
Um, and then suddenly the Christmas present was a 20 euro Amazon voucher. So you could feel like things are clearly not going well. So by that time, it just broke down because the teams were not that great. You had your individual teams that like individual people that you liked. It was a really big company, so you're bound to find someone that you like. But I think the cohesion of the teams was not great. So as soon as the perks were gone and as soon as the vibe was not super great anymore, because we weren't making like the huge successes anymore, yeah, things started to crumble. And I think probably a lot of people can relate to that. When things are great, it's great. Especially in this industry, when things are not great, you're like gone immediately.
Yeah, that's so true. And you could tell, right? The writing's on the wall sometimes.
Yeah, this time is probably the first time in my lifetime that I would be worried to find a new job if I lost my job. I think we've been really privileged in this industry that if you have a very specific skill set, it was very easy to find a job. And I don't think that's the case anymore. And that's the first time that I experienced that personally, which I know is a huge privilege.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think we hear it in the news every day, I suppose, but yeah, it's a little bit. We do recognize our privilege now, don't we? Being kind of growing up in this such rapid growth of technology, and now it's kind of plateauing.
It was bound to, I guess, it's like I don't know, younger viewers might not remember, but the dot-com bubble is like a similar phenomenon. I think this is okay. I'm not going to go into like critique of capitalism or something, but it's important to realize that there are these cycles, like hype cycles, and I think it pays probably to be more cautious about them, to really invest more in things that are not subject to these hype cycles. There's a person in the JavaScript community, Miles Borens, and one of my favorite quotes of his is APIs deprecate, being human never will. So I think that's just super poetic and it's very true. Like you will probably always like, talking to people, being able to work with people, being able to work with difficult people, that's probably the most human skill, and that's the most important skill and will always be needed in probably any kind of industry.
Yeah, that's a good one. APIs deprecate, but people never.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's so
being human.
yeah, being human. And so
Yeah.
I'm going to tug on that thread a little bit because I did kind of hear you mention something along the lines of like building a lasting team or building a lasting career for an individual. So being that the title of this is building an A team for the ages. What, like, if you were to create a perfect formula for having a team or a group of people who are working together last a long time, let's say 20 years, I guess, what would be the dream team, or what would be some of the characteristics of how would you put that together?
Good question. I don't even think it's the characteristics. It's probably mostly about the process. But if I could just like choose, if I just have like a job ad and could just choose, probably people who are good at communication, people who are empathetic, people who have maybe struggled. I I think having the experience of struggle is a very valuable one. Yeah, so I think those were the three things that I would be looking for. But I think you can make almost anyone work in a team, work well in a team. It depends on your process of team building and understanding that, in my opinion, teams are immutable. So as soon as something changes about it, someone leaves, someone enters, you have a new team. You have to go through parts of the process again and just realize that it's a new team. You have to like maybe change some things that you did before.
Yeah. You mean you're not looking for the smartest people? uh,
um, everyone needs to be exactly like me. Those are clearly the smartest people.
yeah, which I think is important to point out, just because, no, I was joking. No, you're not looking for just the smartest people in the room. Um, and you did mention this before about diversity and inclusion. So, um, what role has that played in your career, and how have you noticed, diversity and inclusion being kind of a benefactor in working in teams?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like an empty phrase because everyone uses it, but diversity is really the key to finding the better solution. It's kind of right there that the more differing opinions you can compare, the higher the success chance, I guess. I think
Mm,
it's pretty straightforward, that idea. The more difficult thing is to understand what diversity actually means and how to do it despite it being like the more difficult thing.
mm,
It's just the reason why there's a lack of diversity, I think, is because of just people cutting corners, doing things that are simpler. We're looking for people who are similar to us because it just gives us the feeling of I can trust this person quicker or with
mm,
less effort. But it doesn't not necessarily mean that the trust is there. It's real. It's just that you see yourself in this person, and that's why you feel like, oh, this person's probably okay. But yeah, that's not necessarily true. So you should, I don't know if you should look for the most anything. You just look for people who have specific, maybe, yeah, like I said, like values, similar values to you. Does help, because values are things that probably won't change. Like you can't train someone to have specific values, or probably doesn't. It's not a good idea to do that.
mm.
So that is probably where I would filter out people, if you would like to say that. I think it sounds kind of weird, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, you end up, if you are taking that approach and being lazy about your hiring practices, I think you end up shooting yourself in the foot a lot of times,
Yeah.
because, later on down the road, you you're missing pieces of your puzzle. You're missing parts of your team, people that could contribute in different ways, offer different perspectives, and really add a lot of value to everyone on the team. And it's just a shame that you would want to you would miss out on that. And so I think, yeah, in the teams that I've worked on, the more diversity, the better. And I think also, I think a lot of people, it's really hard to change people's mind, right? Or I should say, it's really hard to introduce to someone a new concept or change their beliefs, for that matter.
Yeah.
So like you said, if they have a belief that, this person, they look and act a certain way, I know what to expect from that person, which is not the case, obviously. But I think, what what you can learn from this, and learn from history, I think, and we will learn from history, one way or the other, either the hard way or the easy way. I think it's, just a matter of opening your mind and questioning things that you may be assuming about certain people, or certain situations, and then also, kind of rebuilding that belief systems. I tend to follow the mantra, you know, I have strong beliefs but loosely held, and I also like to give people a second chance, and everyone has bad days. Everyone, has something going on. You can't make assumptions. Just like if you're driving on the interstate, you can't make an assumption that, the guy that just cut you off, or somebody that just cut you off is a jerk and is intentionally doing that. They could have their dog could have just died, or they could have been going through a divorce, or there's all these things that I think people fail to consider, which I think are important to uh, dealing with anybody, and especially when it comes to working with folks, in those environments that are open-minded, are willing to accept a new, fresh perspective, I think that always bodes well for the team and for the company. Really, do you agree,
Yeah, absolutely.
or do you not agree with that? Right?
No, no. Yeah, I find it hard to add something. I totally agree. And yeah, so um, Kim Creighton is a person who has been doing a lot of work around diversity, equity, inclusion. She just wrote a book that I can highly recommend. It's called Profit Without Oppression. And she always says that diversity is about getting people in, and inclusion is about retention. Like diversity is like recruitment, and inclusion is retention. So it's like, okay, you have these diverse people. How do you keep them? And that's the next difficult thing, is that you show them that they're accepted, and their opinions and perspectives are valued and wanted. And I feel like that's when we have to confront ourselves with our own biases and beliefs. Like, it's easy to have a non-biased hiring process or something, or it's not that easy, but that's just one step. And the next step is really like in your daily interactions. Like, are there any beliefs that you hold, any assumptions that you have about these people that makes dealing with them, or makes it harder for them to succeed? And that's really, really hard, because you have to learn to be really uncomfortable, like being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because it's really not nice when someone calls you out on your own, like, racism or sexism, or but you need to hear it. And with any kind of feedback, you can take it or you can leave it. You can say, like, I don't think it applies to me, or I don't really care. I don't feel like I need to change that, and that's totally fine. But you have to at least listen to it and maybe also consider it for a moment. And yeah, that's a skill that you have to actually learn and hone.
Yeah, definitely. You have had your hand at a lot of different disciplines, I feel. So you've been to support, QA, you've been a data scientist, developer, engineer, manager, and now you're a DevRel. So what would you say, or what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's hasn't quite found their, what they're passionate about, or what they like to do for work? I'm wondering, like, how, going from all those different roles, which are a pretty wide spectrum of roles, how that benefited you.
Yeah. I didn't never thought like, oh, I want to do all the jobs. I want to have all the jobs in IT. I just always was driven by a desire to help people. Like, I went to law school. That's how I started after school, because I really had this desire to change the world and really like make an impact and help the needy. And that was all very romantic in my head. It turned out that the law is actually super boring. And I always like computers, so I was like, okay, let's do something there. And first, it was just learning the trade. So I was a software developer first, worked in web development, and then I went to like DevOps, because that was a bit like, okay, you're not really building the software, but you're like helping the developers, and you're building like the thing for the developers to you know create their value and like do the things that they're great at. So actually, there was like a platform team at that time, which was very early. That was like 2013, 2014, maybe. Like, platform is now like a buzzword, but they were already pretty ahead of their time. Yeah, so DevOps was the next thing, and then I pivoted into consulting, because there was another thing where I felt like I can increase my impact and touch more people. That sounds terrible, but like, you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah, impact
yeah,
more people.
have more influence. Yeah, and really help more people with less effort, I guess. And yeah, now I'm a DevRel, and I feel like that's just like the natural next step, where the one thing that I miss is that I write less and less code, and I don't see the things to completion. I just move away more and more from production, which is unfortunate, and sometimes I miss it.
Mm.
But yeah, but I enjoy what I do right now, which is like creating content and helping people. Like, yeah, that just really makes me happy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did it take you a while to figure that out, in terms of what makes you happy? Like
Oh,
I guess what are the determining factors for, whether you're happy or not, and like how do you know when to move on, you know?
that's a very good and very big question. So first of all, there's a little tool. It's called ikigai. It's a Japanese word for like I think the purpose of life or something like that. It's kind
Mm,
of like a misnomer, but in any case, it's like a graph of multiple Venn diagrams where you look for the things that you like and you're passionate about and you're good at, and you try to find the center. But there are also other overlaps that are fine. Like you don't have to find your purpose in life to be happy or to, you know, make enough money to survive. But that is a tool that have helped me kind of like refocus on like, okay, I'm really good at this, but maybe this is not something that I want to do for work for whatever reason. Because also, if your hobby is your job, you just never have a day off. Even when you're just doing things for fun, you're still literally working, and that
mm,
can be very unhealthy. The point when I really felt like I understand what makes me happy, or at least I know how I can try to find that out. Um, I went to therapy for a long time to like help me get to that point. So I couldn't say like this exact thing makes me happy. It's very, very dependent on the situation that I'm in, and how I feel, and what is important to me at that particular moment in time. And I think also for other people, it's like you really need to listen to yourself and do a lot of work to look inward and find out what do you like, what are you good at. Um, yeah, and it's that's probably a thing that you have to do your entire life. You don't have to, but it's good to do. It's good to figure out who you are, because I feel like you do change who you are every so often. I'm certainly not the same person I was 10 years ago. I'm sure you weren't either.
right. Yeah, that's so true. Know thyself is one of the most understated things in life, I think. You have to know yourself before you can know how to apply yourself to other situations, and I really don't think you should know. Like you said, people change over time. I don't really think you should know, you know, that you want to work for this particular company or do this specific thing, early on. I really encourage people to experiment, and I I like to see that you kind of followed that same path, or confirmed my suspicion, I guess, in terms of one can really move around and try different things and find out, experiment with things to determine where they want to end up, right? And not to say that you're gonna end up here end up where you are forever, but I think there is something to say about that experimentation process. I've been reading a book called Range, and it
Mm,
talks about the uh, it talks about being in a specific discipline and really uh, going deep on something, or kind of niching down, um, and comparing that to some of the disciplines that almost, because they had more of a range of disciplines and didn't get so narrow and specific, that range allowed them to actually excel in their a perfect example, or example that I always say is Albert Einstein, right? And he worked at
mm,
the post office, And while he was working at the post office, he was trying to develop the theory of relativity and all these great inventions. And so I think there is something to be said about not not getting stuck somewhere. And also I do really want to point out that if you are narrowing your focus and trying to specialize, I think maybe there is a little bit of benefit to pulling back a little bit and looking at things from more of a broad perspective, and not only in experimenting, but trying to find different, getting an idea of what the different perspectives are, the different landscapes, what avenues you want to travel, and also experience adds a lot to that too, right? And like you said, there's not one path for all, but you do have to kind of put yourself out there and go try out these experiences, or have these experiences to be able to say, hey, I'm really gelling well with this team, or I'm really you know finding that I'm really productive in this particular scenario, or what have you. And yeah, I think it's yeah, something that I think is very undervalued, is the
Hmm.
ability to have range.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I think this is, again, it's about diversity, and you can like diversify yourself by having a lot of different interests, doing a lot of different things. Like I try to I have a wide range of interests. I'm pretty much interested in almost everything. And I get pretty obsessive over some individual things for a while, and then I pick up a new thing. Um, so one of my hobbies, for example, is to make clothes. Like I sew and I knit, and that just there's an engineering aspect in that as well. And I think that's also the beauty of doing something like engineering. Like there's a lot of principles that apply to a lot of different things. So you can transfer skills, and if you're able to do that, where you have to find an even more abstract layer of what you're already doing,
Mm.
to apply that to something else, that is a true superpower if you're able to do that. Um, yes, I encourage people to definitely um, at least see things from different perspectives. If you want to specialize, but then don't narrow your entire existence to just like I'm this person, the person that does that. I'm the super expert on this, but apart from that, I don't really, understand the wider impact of um, what you're doing and what you can be doing. I'm currently working on a talk about systems thinking, and one of the things that I find like super fascinating is that it's it's teaching you the skill of considering the wider implications of things. And
Mm.
it talks about, for example, a view of responsibility where you take responsibilities for your actions, and that's not a bad thing. It's not supposed to make you feel bad. Quite the opposite, because you feel so empowered. But once you understand you're part of the problem, that automatically means you can be part of the solution pretty easily. You can change your situation if you are the one causing it to some degree. So yeah, I don't know how I got to this rant, but for sure, it's okay to be really really interested in one thing, but don't forget that there are other things out there.
Yeah, it's kind of that saying, if you only have a hammer, everything starts looking like a nail, or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so yeah, having the idea of other tools to use
And
is always good.
again, oh, excuse me.
No, go ahead.
I feel like I am most interested in people who have like in different backgrounds, and that gives them different perspectives. Um, you know, there are a lot of people, especially in the DevRel space, who are not necessarily technical people, but who have, for example, a background in content creation or in any kind of stage performance,
Mm.
and they're just good educators, and that's really amazing to watch them work and learn from them, and it makes you it makes myself a better DevRel.
Mm.
And I have a technical background, but for example, I'm taking classes on improv now because I want to improve kind of my spontaneity and stage presence. And there's so many things that you can pick up from other jobs and vocations to enrich, your skill set.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think as technical folks and learning technologies like Kubernetes and containers and cloud native and the things that we do and probably a lot of people do who are listening, sometimes you don't realize the benefit of some of those outside perspectives. I also had a theater major on a team with me before, and I mean they were great for the team. I mean they added tremendous value, more than you would think, and I think I don't know. There's something about having somebody that's this person was technical as well, which is amazing. I mean, I don't. They use both parts of their brains, which is awesome. Uh, but I mean, even having uh, people who are non-technical, or yeah, like you said, more creative, or bring all of these things to the table, it really adds value to everyone on the team.
Yeah, 100% agree. So I do encourage everyone to, be interested in the arts or in sociology. I guess like when we're talking about team building, that's technically not like a hard STEM science. And I feel I guess we can see the consequences of focusing too much on the technical stuff and too little on everything else. It's just, it feels maybe sometimes a bit less personal in these kinds of teams, or it's just like I definitely feel uncomfortable in a team or in a company where there's only white guys because I just stand out so much, and that obviously kind of influences and maybe impedes my ability to deliver good quality because I don't feel as comfortable to be myself maybe. So you probably know that when you feel like you have to hold back, you just can't be as creative or productive as you would like to be.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think that's super important to have that awareness. And yeah, I mean that's all all the reason why everyone should be uh, focused on, or at least have an awareness of everyone on their team and where they come from, having an understanding and then also an accepting, right? So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I think you have a lot of experience as a manager, and so I was just wondering real quick, you know, how how is being a manager added to this whole thing in terms of how you view teams and how you view uh, people in a team setting?
That is such a good question. Um, so I was a manager, but I was not the team lead, but I did lead teams as well. It's definitely a different experience from the other side of the ceiling or of the window. Um, I think I had like an interesting experience with like the responsibility of being a manager to actually have that power over someone's career in their hands. Like that is a heavy burden. So you do maybe have to learn to be even more focused on, that person rather than, I guess, their role. Like the person has value because that is a person, not because they're a hard worker or a high performer. And if they're not performing anymore, then they have less value, and that they're easier to get rid of or something like that. That is it's very easy to fall into the trap to think that. And I feel like once you start thinking like that about people, it's just really, you start losing the trust of all the other people as well. So you have to like make the extra effort to, I guess, still, I mean, you do have this other responsibility suddenly to the company, and to the maybe the board, or it's not just to the people. And I didn't really realize that before I became a manager, and that's possibly also why I'm currently not a manager. Why I just decided to let that go for a while. But I really loved being a team lead, even if I didn't have any like responsibility over people's salaries or holidays or something like that, because it was really nice to create that space for people to be creative and collaborate, just to see four individual people coming together and like forming like a really great team, and hanging out and just really enjoying that. So yeah, there's definitely good and bad sides, and I wouldn't say like being a manager is bad, but it is a different skill set. And I do feel like it's not just because you're the best engineer in the room doesn't mean that you would be the best engineer and manager. Also, it's a completely different skill set, and there's a lot of training that goes into being a good and empathetic, I guess, manager.
Yeah, which is one of the most important skills, I think.
Yeah, sure.
That's great. Yeah, I like the informal role as well. Like, I always feel it's different when you're kind of assigned someone's manager, right? Versus being a team lead where you're like, okay, I kind of naturally assume this position, and even though I may have the designation of team lead, this is something that just is kind of like more of an informal way of going about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess it depends also how you define being the lead. Some people just feel like that means they are making the decisions. They're basically the main developer, and everyone else is just the co-developer or something like that. But to me, it just means that you know how to utilize your people. You know who's good at what, and so where you can use them for specific tasks. And that ideally, that's something that they also want to do. So then they feel like they get to do what they love and they can grow there. I think that is the key to building a good team or leading a team in a good way, teams in a good way. And that's why I also feel like it's probably harder to have four exactly same people on the team than have four very different people, because it's harder to then decide who's doing what. But if you know someone's really good at communication, and they really like to write, then they can write the documentation, or be in charge of that. And someone else may be very technical and just really loves to go very deep into something, then they might want to do the implementation. Obviously, you don't decide that; you discuss it with the team. But just really utilizing people's strengths, but you have to know them and you have to help grow them.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's at.
Cool. Well, we're about to wrap up, but I did want to give a quick, session or not session, just a quick little blurb on Kuberoki, because
Yes.
I didn't know how to make that segue, but so we're gonna turn
But you did it perfectly.
you're talking about karaoke now, and yeah,
I can do a segue if you want to.
Yeah, please.
Okay, I'm gonna explain to you why karaoke is like very similar to team building, in as much that one of the things that I love about karaoke is that everyone can have a voice. Like everyone can choose a song, and there's a lot of people out there who say they don't enjoy karaoke, they are too shy, they don't want to sing, and then you put them in a karaoke bar, and then 2 beers later, or an hour, or whatever comes first, they will sing either in the corner, in the choir, or they're gonna sing into a mic. It's like a natural progression, and I love that because it's just a way for people to share maybe a side of them that is like not a professional thing. Maybe it's something very personal. There's something that makes them vulnerable. And it's so great when people feel comfortable sharing that, but you have to also create the atmosphere where people would want to feel vulnerable. And I think that's the thing, that a lot of people don't have that experience at karaoke. It's like most karaoke sessions are very aggressive. So yeah, but there's a segue.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. You learn a lot. You certainly learn a lot about a person, based on their song selection and
Oh yeah, for sure.
how they
What's your song? What's your go-to karaoke song?
So mine is Chattahoochee by Alan Jackson.
Oh, I don't think I know.
So
I know Alan Jackson. He's a country singer, right?
Country
he has
singer,
that Mercury song, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I know that from Home Improvement.
Nice. Yeah, so my go-to is country, and yeah, so looking forward to breaking that out on the 19th.
Okay, well, I have to give a fair warning that karaoke machine is like super shit. So I don't know if they have country, but we will make it work. There's definitely country on there. I don't know if they have that particular song, but it sounds very specific. But we'll find something for sure.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Yeah, anything will be fun. It'll just be fun to be there. So yeah.
Before we wrap up, can I make some book recommendations?
Oh, of course. Yeah, we love book recommendations.
Awesome, because like most of the things that I talked about today came from books, and I love them, and I think they're really helpful. So my favorite books on the topics that we talked about today is The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. It's almost like prose. It's like a short story about a team that's dysfunctional, and then the process of how they kind of try to fix that. And it also has like very interesting and helpful tools. So that's a good book, and it's short. There is Team Topologies. That's a more DevOpsy book, but yeah, it's in the name. It's about basically how to structure teams, maybe. There is Tribal Leadership, which is probably one of my favorite books. It's about culture and language and like mindsets of people, how you can shift the mindsets. And then the Thinking in Systems. That's a systems thinking book that I'm currently really obsessed with. So I can put them all on my Twitter later. At Lian Makes Things.
Yeah,
so
and
follow me, and then
yeah, Lian Makes Things on Twitter, and I'll put them in the description of this video as well, and people can check them out.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for your time today, Liam. I really looking forward to seeing you at KubeCon.
Yes,
for those who are watching, I hope to see you at KubeCon. If you're there, please find me, and I would love to meet you. And yeah, on the 19th, we'll be doing some karaoke, so that'll be super fun.
Absolutely. Go to karaoke.love and then sign up, and then you can get on the guest list, and then you'll get a thing to get in. So definitely do it now because we had a lot of signups. I did not expect that because the karaoke place is tiny, and I first wasn't sure if I could get 30 people together to even go there. But now we're at like 120 registrations or something. So yeah.
Very popular.
Better sign up now.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. So reserve your spot.
For sure.
Cool. Well, thanks again for your time. I really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for watching. Again, kubeskills.com is our community, and we would love to have you. Just go to kubeskills.com and sign up. It's totally free. And yeah, we're a community of about 300 or maybe 400 now. And so yeah, it's a really good tight-knit group, and we have a lot of fun in there. So all right,
thank you so much for having me. It's a great conversation.
Absolutely. Happy to have you. And yeah, have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks. Have a great weekend.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.